Okay, shalom.
Shalom, shalom, shalom.
Today, shalom. Today we are doing our weekly class, but we know that many people cannot participate. Many people is on vacation inside of Israel. Some people is on vacation outside of Israel. But we wanted to have the special class on Passover. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about what we did in this Passover. Differently from last year, that not everybody wanted to celebrate. We have full celebrations this year in 7 different schools and institutions. I went to many classes showing the matzah and explaining the matzah. Can you see the matzah?
Yeah.
Matzah, okay. I think this is better. You see the kids with the matzah too. So we talk about the meaning of the matzah and why it's called the bread of the poor people, even that is very expensive in the supermarket. We did the Passover seders for almost 1,000 students. I don't know how much you can see the kids, but there were lots of kids. In many of the schools, we also we prepared the children to participate in the seder, because not everybody at home they read the Agadah. So we taught the Agadah. You can see in different schools. One of the Passover seders will have more than 400 children and parents, and one have more than 300 children and parents. You can see lots of people with a microphone, and was very happy. Some of the Passovers were less children, like let's say 100 and 120. So it was a nice celebration. Also, we did the Passover for the Holocaust survivors. We decided to teach the Passover songs. Many of them, because of the language, they cannot celebrate, but you can see on Facebook many pictures of our seders. So I wanted to, after I tell you that we have more Passover celebrations than I think ever before. Almost 1,000, more than 1,000 people participate. A little bit about what we do in Passover. So we have a seder. Our prayer book is called Sidur Tfilah, and this is because the Tfilot, the book of prayers, is in a certain order. The same on Passover, we have to do the things with the order. Kadesh Urchatz, Karpas Yachatz, Magid Rochza, Motzi Matzah, Meror Korech, Shulchan. We have to do, everybody will follow the same order. That's why it's called the Seder Pesach. And we put in a special plate where the order is important too. There is many traditions for the Seder. Mostly people put 6 things on the plate. In the plate they put 6 things, but there are certain Jews that make only 5. So I'm going to talk a little bit about these things. The first one, that we put a wing or a bone, and this is called zroa. And this is because God, according to the Torah, took us beyad chazaka ubitzroa netuya. The Bible doesn't have concepts; they have images. God is God is not angry. He has a red nose. He doesn't take us with power. He took us with a strong arm. This is the thing that they understand. They understand the concepts. So when we put the wing there in the platter, it means that God cared about the Jews in Egypt and redeemed them from slavery and bring them to freedom in Israel. So the first one, and that's why always we put the wing on top. It means God. It's the presence of God, and that God intervenes in history. I would say. The second one, we put a roasted egg. Some people, they put only just a boiled egg, and people put the roasted egg. This is the sacrifice of the celebration, and it means that the Jews built the temple, and the temple was destroyed by the Babylonians, and then rebuilt the temples, and were destroyed by the Romans. But we hope again to rebuild the temple, which the temple symbolized the freedom and the sovereignty of the Jews over the land of Israel. So the temple should represent here the self-determination of the Jews in the land of Israel. Just put in the words, if the first one, the Zroa, it was God a presence intervening in history, the egg will be the Jewish people. And that's why this two, we put it on top. And then we have many other things. In the center, we usually put lettuce, maror. There is many kind of lettuces today in the supermarket, but we usually use the Greek lettuce. And this is like the common one, that when you eat at the beginning is sweet, and after this, it becomes very bitter. And this symbolized that the Egyptians, when in the time of Joseph, they say to the Jews, "Oh, please come to. We're going to give you the land of Goshen. This is a very expensive and fertile land." And after this, they make them slave. Like first, they were very sweet, and then they were very bitter to us. The same is like you buy a cell phone and say, "Oh yes, we give it for free. We give it for free," and after this, you have to pay a lot because they raise the price all the time. Yeah, no, first you only will pay $10 a month, and after this, the second year rise to I don't know, to $100, and then the rise to 200. So at the beginning they're sweet, and after this there is bitter. Then we have the charoset that symbolize the bricks that the Jews made themselves to build this not pyramids. The pyramids were built about 1,000 years before that the Jews came to Egypt. But these cities, Pitom and Ramses. And then on the other hand, we have the karpas, that the Sephardic Jews, they put celery, and the Ashkenazi Jews, they put potato. Both is the same, it's just to mark the houses, so the angel of death will pass over. So the karpas is also symbol of the spring, the Aviv, but it's also symbol of identification. And it usually is when there is anti-Semitism, identification is not something very pleasant. Try to think you're in the 30s in Germany, you not go to the street and say, "Oh, yeah, I'm a Jew here, I have a nice big Magen David." Or today you're in I don't know, in France and certain neighbors, and you go with a kippah and show everybody. No, they just cover with a head. So it's not so simple to identify. But according to the Passover, try to imagine after 10 plagues that the Egyptians were not very friendly of the Jews. So when you mark the house and say, oh, this is a house of Jews, you take in certain risks, but if not, they will not pass. The last one we have is the Chazeret, and the Chazeret is the herbs that they were in the supermarket. I'm going to tell you a secret. When the Jews left Egypt and they were in the desert, there were not supermarkets in the desert. So they have to look around everywhere and try to put some herbs, vegetables to the cooking they do. So the only thing that they can find in the desert is these very bitter herbs, and that's why this is called chazeret. And also the poor people have to go all over the houses and looking for somebody to give them charity. Lechazer al-ptachim. This is the same rule. So this is the thing that we put, and it's very important, all of these strange things, because we want to keep the children alert, so we can tell them the story of the Haggadah. For 28 years, I'm volunteering in the same school, and this is the first time I did a Seder Pesach for the whole school. And they did their own Haggadah. Now, Haggadah, it has to be with a hay. Haggadah with hay is the narration, something that did happen. Haggadah in Aleph is a fable, something that did not happen. So it has to be the Haggadah. This is from the book of Deuteronomy, the Vehigadet lebincha hayom. They should tell your children today that God took us from Egypt and bring us to the land. It's very important that everybody will be awake so we can tell him many stories. The matzot, we put 3 matzot. Usually they give, these explanations of Abraham, Yitzchak, Yaakov, the 3 patriarchs, or Cohen, Levi, Israel, the 3 kinds of Jews. But the truth is that we need 2 matzot for like every Friday or every holiday. It's a double portion. But we need another extra matzah, the one in the middle, to break it and hide it for the afikoman, and one to make the seder. So 2 will be like in Shabbat or the holiday, but we need one for the afikoman and for the seder to say ha lachmania. And I'm going to finish by saying that ha lachmania, that we start the Haggadah shel Pesach, saying ha lachmania. This is the bread of the poor, or this is the bread of the afflicted. It doesn't matter how much it costs in the supermarket. Why it's called the bread of the poor? It's because the matzah, and we have an expert in gastroenterology, the matzah has a very interesting quality that you eat a little bit and it makes you constipation in the stomach. It's very hard to digest. If you want to know why, you should ask Professor Lachter later. But this is what happened. So that's the same with the poor people. They don't eat big meals. They have to feel satisfied with a little bit that they have. And that's why it doesn't matter how much the matzah costs in the supermarket, it's the quality of the kind of food. It's a food that is very hard to digest. You eat a little bit and you feel bloated. I don't know. And also the matzah, if you notice in Shabbat, we have the challah that is very hard to break it in pieces and doesn't make any noise, because we don't want to use a knife on Shabbat. The knife is a symbol of violence and war, and Shabbat is the symbol of peace, shalom. So we do a special braided challah that we can easily take it apart. The matzah, you break it. And also the poor people, is unemployed, he's on the street, he's broken. like the challah is broken. That's why the the qualities of the matzah is what define them as the bread of the poor, not how much it costs on the supermarket. I say a little bit about Passover, and we're going to talk a lot about hope, hoping there will be uh, um, a seder of hope. There will be hope for us that all of the hostages are coming back, and there will be hope for us. There will be no more wars, and the matzah will symbolize not the bread of the poor, but the bread of the hope. I'm going to pass the microphone to you, and also the people that is listen this after Passover. We wish you a happy Passover, Chag Pesach Sameach.
Okay, terrific. Thank you, Edgar. And there's always what to add in terms of the symbols we choose. Others may, in their turn, choose who they what they might want to add from their Pesach table, something that's really important to you as you want to tell the story. I'll tell you two additional things that we do. One is we put a dainty small necklace over a additional cup, and we call that Miriam's cup, and we put water in it, Miriam having been the person, the prophetess, given credit for there being water in the desert and the well that followed Miriam as we walked through the desert. And the other thing that's being suggested this year, some people have an empty chair at the table to remember the hostages. Some put a little yellow ribbon. And another option is to put a lemon, a yellow lemon on the table, yellow being kind of the symbol for people being released. And so that's other things that can be on the table, and everyone can choose things that are really important to them that'll help tell the story, because as Rabbi Gil Nativ pointed out, there isn't exactly a mitzvah to read the Haggadah. The mitzvah is V'higadat lebincha. The mitzvah from the Torah, of course, is tell the story to children, to the next generation. So that being the main thing we do, people tell it in all sorts of ways. And it's a story which just keeps getting used and turned and learning from it over the years. So again, together with Edgar, we decided to deviate from our Pirkei Avot. We'll do that after Pesach. We're getting very close to the end of the Ethics of the Fathers. But I was going to share with you, and I sent out, and let's see if I could share a screen. Did I do it? Share. Let's see. Share. Share. Yeah. Okay. You see it? I hope.
Yes.
Yes. Great. Okay. So I'm reading a book called Choosing Hope, the Jewish Tradition by David Arno. And it's really good, and it's all about hope. So I imagine everyone here has been learning a little bit about Pesach and trying to keep Pesach fresh. We have the questions that we ask at Pesach. I'll just share with you because most of you have met Neil Gold, Rabbi Neil Gold, who does a wonderful online series of talks, and had a good talk about Pesach. And one of his questions was to ask people where water appears in the Haggadah. Talmud saying that water is kind of equivalent to Torah in many ways. It appears, and both of them being so critical for life. And and in asking people to think a little bit about the story, beginning with Moses being put in the Nile and the water of the plagues. It appears in a couple of plagues. Once frogs come out of the water, once the water goes blood red, and of course the water at the Red Sea, and then the water of Miriam's well. And you may find other water or Torah references or symbols as you look at your Haggadah and as you tell it this year. But this Arno talks a lot about hope, and I'm agreeing with Edgar that this year, even though there are only part of the hostages have been released, and we still have hostages, and we still have many people who are involved in the war, we're having a much more celebratory and happy Pesach than last year. I think last year we were still in more of a bunker, more in a absorbing the trauma, and eventually resilience brings us around to being able to celebrate the good, even as we don't forget some of the bad things that are going on. So I'll read a couple of these. Hope is movement. To hope means that you just keep on going. Marcel is a philosopher who says that hope requires the looseness of a skier who takes the bumps in stride and keeps on course. And that movement with hope involves acting as if you can see the outcome that you desire. And it's different from optimism. It's not that you can make a nice spin on things and hope that there'll be a good outcome, because the optimist is more, he says, the maker of speeches that way, whereas one who is hoping involves movement, involves direction, involves change. And then the opposite of hope being despair. And that hope is an act, not just a concept, but an act by which the temptation to despair is actively and victoriously overcome. And Judaism, in many, many stories throughout the Bible, wants us to choose hope and to treat other people in a manner that will enable them to choose hope as well. He writes about how the present arrangement, and a lot of us are suffering from some of the present arrangements, whether they're political or military or social, financial, that hope keeps that arrangement as open and provisional rather than just accepting it. We don't accept that this is how it's going to be and there's nothing to do, but that we look for and aim for things to be better. And so he says, well, we're supposed to remember that we were slaves in Egypt, and we're supposed to somehow stand outside the system that is oppressive and to struggle to do the tikkun for human dignity, and to draw hope from the Exodus when things were probably the worst they could ever be. 400 years of being slaves was pretty awful. Another thing that comes up, especially with kids, depending on how old the grandchildren are, is whether the stories have to be historically true. And of course, in archaeology, there has not been good support for the Pesach story, for the Exodus story. But what is important in learning is that a myth doesn't have to be historically true to reveal very true things about humanity and about the human condition. So whether it's exactly true or whether it's historically true or whether it's essentially true, are all valid reasons for learning the story. And even today, we see a world very much in need of redemption, and ourselves as doing the redeeming. And sometimes we get tired of doing that and reluctant about it. And then we can remember that Moses was also reluctant, and he tried to not have to be the person for a long time. But then it turned out well, and we have to work to have the same thing happen for us. And again, that's a sense of tikkun. One of the famous world leaders was Václav Havel, who said, each of us must find real fundamental hope within ourselves. You can't give it or delegate it to anyone else to be hopeful for us. And then there's a story which Edgar didn't mention, a somewhat spicy story about Amram and Miriam and Moses. That Amram, Miriam's father, says to everyone, Pharaoh is going to drown firstborn boys, so we're not going to have any more children, and everybody has to get divorced, and they all got divorced. And then his 6-year-old daughter has her first prophecy, and she criticizes him, and she says, well, Pharaoh said, drown all the sons, but you're saying not even have daughters. Don't do that. So they all got married again. They canceled their divorces. This is a midrash. And then Pharaoh said, well, you're going to spend all day out in the orchards and out in the desert, and you're going to work, so you're going to be separate from your wives. And according to this midrash, the righteous women, the Israelite women, went out to the apple trees, to the orchards, and that's where they conceived. And so that's one reason why the charoset should have apples and be tart, is to remind us of the apple trees of that midrash. So there's all sorts of ways of redemption that hinges on hope and the capacity to envision an alternative reality and the willingness to bring that to fruition. And this kind of a side issue that they brought in, but there was a big study on leadership. How did Moses get people to actually do this? And that the overall positive emotional tone that's crafted by the most resonant leaders is a sense of hope. And then there's the anger issue that comes up in this whole story about having been enslaved and how we should then behave having been enslaved. And Deuteronomy says very clearly that it forbids harboring hatred against Egypt, saying you shall not abhor an Egyptian because you were a stranger in Egypt. We were all strangers in Egypt, and therefore let us not hate the Egyptians. And I think there's a message for that today, just as the message is that on Pesach, we all consider ourselves as if we had been in Egypt. We try to put ourselves in the shoes of that time. So I asked you all to think of your favorite maxim, either about hope or about Pesach, and to share something about that. And Anita wrote back to me with hers because she's up in Ishchal with her kid and grandchildren. And Gershon wrote his because he's also, he and Bobby are not available today, but of you who are. So let's hear from Liz first and then Lorena.
Did you say me first?
Yes, I did.
Oh, I got nothing to say right now.
Nothing right now. Okay, you could raise a hand afterwards in a bit if you like. So Lorena, you're going to be next. And Michael will be after. Lorena, have you unmuted yourself? You seem to be frozen.
Want to skip to Michael for now?
Okay, she was here, and that happens. Okay, Michael, let's hope that your speaker works.
Good. I'm not sure what I'm hoping for. I think all of us hope for, I think there are certain things that we all hope for. We all hope for a good life. We hope for peace, prosperity, uh, happiness. I think those are universal. And at this time of year, based on the fact that we're recounting the story in which we were slaves, we're hoping for freedom, coupled with the fact that some of our people are not free, that they're captives. So that's also, I think, what we're mostly hoping for is that there is an end to the whole situation. And maybe we'll all live in peace.
Cool. Tell us about what your Pesach is going to look like.
My what?
Pesach, Passover.
I'm going to my friend's house. I shouldn't say that. I'm going to my friend's family. I know them from back in the States. He's Israeli, she's American. They made Aliyah with their two children. And most of the time I go to either their house or his family because he has an extremely large family.
Hmm. And is there something that you share at that table? Something that you say there?
That I say or bring.
Yeah, one maxim or one story that you share. Do you go around the table and read the Haggadah, or do you add to it?
Uh,
Comment on it.
it's read in Hebrew, yeah. We don't add to it.
So you
The
stick to
kids,
the.
the kids might.
Hmm.
Um, I think the kids sometimes ad lib.
Yeah, that's for sure. Yes, they do. Okay, good. Lorena, did you? I think she may have disappeared. Um, okay, Liz, would you share something, or should I move on?
No, I'm here. I'm here. I just,
Okay.
yeah,
Don't. Okay, your camera
I'm
is
not,
not working, but let's hear from you.
yeah, okay. I try to get the camera to work.
All right.
Yeah, well, I was reflecting on hope or the Seder or what I would say or contribute. And I thought that hope, in a way, is a living process inside yourself. You can look at history or at the present moment and think there is no hope, but you can always bring yourself actively to where there is hope, and then also not connected so much to what you can do, or but more like where hope or like grace, like good things happened that were not from your own making, so you can trust in that solutions will be found, or that things will go well in a good way, but also to really invite to actively create hope inside of yourself.
Hmm. Yes. This book on hope has several things about what people during the Holocaust in the camps did. Some of them, in order to be hopeful, would imagine and would share together what they hoped or planned to do should they ever get out. And of course, some of them got out and survived, and some of them did not. And we do a little bit to support those who have survived. But that was one way that people expressed their hope and shared their hopes with other people. And not that they could do anything about what their situation was at the moment, but they could imagine and dream and plan and aim for a different and a better life. Should that war end and they be freed and they be able to live a normal life again. Good. Mom, are you there? Can you unmute yourself? We don't have a camera on you, so we don't know if you're there. And you're muted. No response. Maybe there, maybe not there. Are you able to unmute yourself or not this week? I don't know what's going on in the Bronx in New York, but that's not working out. That's fine.
Jesse?
Yes.
Okay. The reason I say I don't have anything to say. For me, hope falls under the category of magical thinking. And that as I don't want to dwell in the realm of despair, I find it's kind of like I don't find it self-soothing to also think about hope. My feeling is it is what it is, and life goes on, and I enjoy going to a Seder and hearing the retelling of the story. But for the most part, I feel myself mostly separate from the whole thing. And
Mhm.
I think that has to do with the fact that I am alone. And, I made many Seders while my children were growing up. But being here and not having the same kind of connection, it's for me, it's a time in a way of sadness. And I try to stay away from that. And so I just in my head, it's neither here nor there.
Mhm. But you have a kid who's making Aliyah with kids, right?
Yes, yes.
So we can hope that next year your Pesach Seder is going to be
Little different. Yeah, back to more of a for me a normal. They got
including family.
yeah, this week they got their final approval,
Terrific. And
and
what are their dates?
third week in July.
Third week in July. Okay, so Rosh Hashanah here.
Yes. And I'm right now with my health and other things, I'm just, I'm still sort of in the shocked stage that this is even going to happen with my son. And for me, like you said, it all goes into thinking about the future is part of wishing and magical thinking and does me no particular good.
Okay, well, let's hope you're going to have a Pesach Seder this year.
Yes, I'm going up the street to one friend, and on for Yom Tov on Sunday, I'm going even further up the street to another friend for lunch.
Mm-hmm. And where is your kid going to live?
The last I heard, he was thinking about buying a house in Kiryat Karmegat.
Never heard. Is that near Jerusalem?
No, it's southwest of Jerusalem. It's kind of like due east of Ashdod or Ashkelon,
Mm.
somewhere down south there. It's new homes, young people.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so I'll remind us all that the prayer goes at the end of the Seder that we say this year where we are and next year in Jerusalem. And so maybe next year you're going to be somewhere near Jerusalem when you do that.
But just the fact that I'm in Israel is already more than I ever dreamed of.
Okay, well, a lot of hopes fulfilled and a lot of things yet to hope for, and all good things that way. Okay, Mom, it looks like you got back on. Can you unmute yourself? There you go.
Hey,
Can you add something about your Pesach Seder
well,
or your hopes?
of course, my hope is um, for good health for my family, extended family, and then that that internationally, that the hostages get returned. That is because I think that will change the whole picture of the war. And do I am I hopeful that that will be? Uh, I'm trusting that my family is being wise about caring for themselves and their families, and that people will be healthy. Of course, there are accidents, but people will be healthy. And I am really hoping and praying that the hostages come home. The thought of them suffering and continuing to suffer, they seem to be a strong bunch of people who are over 550 days, have managed to sustain themselves. Just hang on and hold on for a little longer, and that it will be over and you'll be home. And that's my theme for this Pesach. And of course, that the world doesn't go crazy with the leadership we have. I'm hoping that it's my lack of understanding that makes me worry, and that smarter people than me are thinking about this and working on it. And I have to trust, which I don't have much of, I have to say. But the world will go on one way or another, for better or for worse, and I'm hoping that it goes on for better, because we sure have had the worst. And I wish everybody a Hag Sameach and good health and peace, and that the hostages come home and you have a fulfilling holiday with friends and family and whoever it is that you share with. And that's my wish for Pesach.
Ted,
That's
have you clicked into what we're talking about here?
No,
Oh,
I just came on.
oh, okay.
I
Well,
was on before I had to go out.
yes, fine. Well, we've been talking about hope and talking about our hopes for this Pesach. Everyone seems to agree that the hostage situation, and interestingly, it gets emphasized a lot more than the war situation, which is also quite difficult. There's still a war going on 7 fronts, and we're also hoping that will be brought to a ceasefires, at least, if not peace resolutions. But there are hopeful signs. There are signs that Hezbollah may
That's
lay down
right.
its weapons, and there are signs
make it
that
I can't.
Okay.
that Hamas may accept Egyptian proposals and American proposals, and so there are some good signs going on. And those who were very worried for the last 5 days that the stock market was crashing and there would be financial problems, for the last 24 hours have seen that it's bouncing back. So there's a lot of resilience in things real and not real, or concrete and not concrete, and spiritual and not spiritual. But I'm hoping everyone will have a spiritually uplifting and supportive Pesach that will help us relive the experience and come together. And it's a very unifying experience, the Pesach Seder, for Jews all over the world, reading the same story in different ways, in different languages, with different emphases. And so I wish you all a good, healthy, happy Pesach. And I'm going to have a particular celebration this Pesach Sunday because I turned 70 on that day. So I get a birthday together with Pesach. And that means
Mazal
I get matzah
tov,
cake instead of
mazal
regular
tov,
cake.
mazel
And
tov,
that's
mazel
fine.
tov.
And that happens once in a while because I have an April birthday. But I'm looking forward to seeing you all after Pesach. And it looks like Pesach is going to include 17th, and the 24th is going to be a Memorial Day. But after that, we'll renew our lessons, and I'll be sending it out. And as I said, there were some very nice messages from Gershon and Bobby, and from Flores,
And
and
Anita,
And Anita and Fred as well.
and
Yes.
from Anita and Fred as well, who wrote their thoughts about this Pesach and best wishes to everybody here. So Shabbat Shalom and
Shabbat Shalom
Chag
Pesach
Sameach,
Sameach.
and let it be indeed Sameach. May
Awesome.
we find the joy even when there are things that are not happy together with it.
Amen.